Good evening. President Bongbong Marcos says the South China Sea Code of Conduct with Vietnam is, quote, pretty much there. In an interview in Vietnam, Marcos cites the Memorandum of Understanding with Hanoi on incident prevention in the South China Sea when asked about the crafting of a bilateral code of conduct. The Memorandum of Understanding aims to boost cooperation among both countries' coast guards and prevent untoward incidents in the South China Sea.
We're pretty much there. Yun yung memorandum of understanding na ating ginawa between our two coast guards, pati yung mga plano na magkakaroon ng joint cruises at joint exercises this year, 2024.
In November last year, the president said the Philippines was working on a separate code of conduct in the South China Sea with neighboring countries such as Malaysia and Vietnam, as he noted that a regional code of conduct with China has not been progressing. Both the Philippines and Vietnam have territories in the South China Sea, where China had staked its claim in the majority of the area. If the code of conduct with China and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations has not moved forward, Marcos says it was best to bilaterally craft agreements with other ASEAN member countries.
Yung sinasabi ko noon na magkaroon ng agreement, kung hindi natin matapos ang code of conduct with ASEAN and China, ay sabi ko gawin natin bilateral lang muna ng members of ASEAN para naman hindi na natin kailangan alalahanin na magkakaproblema tayo sa Vietnam, magkakaproblema tayo sa Brunei, magkakaproblema tayo sa Malaysia, etc. etc.
The Philippine National Police says it has not monitored any plot to bring down the administration of President Bongbong Marcos. PNP spokesperson Colonel Jean Fajardo says morale is high within their ranks as they remain focused on its mandate to protect the people.
There is no destabilization plot, there is no kumita. Yun po yung sagot po ng ating Chief PNP. Kung ano man po yung mga naririnig po natin ay let us be cautious sa mga naririnig po natin ng mga balibalita. But on the part of the PNP, wala po tayo na monitor na any destabilization plot or even kudeta.
Fajardo's remark comes after former President Rodrigo Duterte warned Marcos over the weekend that the incumbent president might meet the same fate as his father, Ferdinand Marcos Sr., who was overthrown by an uprising in February 1986. According to Fajardo, Police General Benjamin Acorda is reminding the police force to ignore the political noise and focus on their duties.
Lagi po sinasabi ng ating GPNP through their respective regional directors na i-remind po ang ating mga kapulisan na huwag tayong makinig sa mga nababalitaan natin ng mga political noise at yun nga yung lagi nating pakiusap sa mga ibang mga interest groups po na sana po nire-respeto po ng PNP yung kanilang kakapatan magpahayag ng kanilang damdamin, pabor o laban sa sinuman o sa sinumang grupo kasama na sa administrasyon. Ang pakiusap lang po sana natin, please spare the Philippine National Police.
Senate discussions on economic charter change will officially begin next week. According to Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, the discussions would still be made possible through resolution of both houses number 6, which he filed on January 15. Zubiri says everything is taking its course as a subcommittee is being created before the hearings next week. Resolution of both houses number 6 seeks to amend limited economic provisions of the Constitution, specifically public services, education, and advertising. It was filed in light of a signature campaign for charter change via People's Initiative. All 24 senators have opposed the People's Initiative for charter change, which considers a joint voting of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The upper chamber pointed out that they may easily be eclipsed by the House, which has over 300 lawmakers. President Bongbong Marcos earlier expressed his firm stance that economic provisions of the 1987 Constitution must be amended, adding that the Senate and House of Representatives must be kept separate in the process. A Metropolitan Manila Development Authority official believes no traffic czar is needed to oversee the traffic situation in Metro Manila. In a radio interview, MMDA Undersecretary Procopio Lipanas says there is no need to appoint a traffic czar since the government's efforts are continuous. He says transportation agencies continuously conduct studies to alleviate the never-ending traffic problem in Metro Manila. According to Lipana, the main problem lies with the lack of infrastructure. Lipana believes commuters may expect ease in their daily commute once the country's major public transit projects are completed. The Management Association of the Philippines earlier suggested the designation of a czar to oversee the traffic crisis in the country's capital region. Two transport groups say several drivers were flagged and their traditional jeepneys impounded despite the extended deadline for public utility vehicle consolidation. At the House Committee on Transportation hearing, Piston President Modi Floranda says Land Transportation Office officers approached a Piston member and asked for proof that the member's provisional authority to operate was extended despite the President's order.
Sa ngayon pa lang, Mr. Chair, ay kahapon ay kasama po ako ng isang membro namin. Sinita siya ng LTO, ng LTO-NCR, at hinahanapan siya ng extension ng PA at hinahanapan din siya ng rehistro ng kanyang ng kanyang jeepney. Nung nag-aanohan na sila, ang sabi natin ay hindi ba kayo na-orient na merong extension ng 3 buwan yung PA.
Manibela President Mar Valbuena shares a similar experience, saying that at least 10 traditional jeepneys of his group members had been impounded as transport officers allegedly sought consolidation documents from the drivers.
Sa ngayon po, Mr. Chair, hindi po bababa sa 10 ang naka-impound sa amin. Dahil po hinahanapan sila ng consolidation na papel. Wala silang maipakita. Ngayon yung mga sasakyan po nila ay naka-impound. Ang sabi po, Mr. Chair, dahil nga po deadline na nung December 31, hindi kami nakapag-consolidate. Expired na yung provisional authority namin. At sabi po nila, colorum na.
Valbuena points to LTO and the Philippine National Police Highway Patrol Group as those behind impounding of their jeepneys. For their part, LTO Chief Assistant Secretary Vigor Mendoza II says field officers are currently barred from apprehending drivers who have not consolidated because of the extension order. Mendoza then promises to look into the revelations of the transport groups.
I will look into this personally, Mr. Chair, no, because as far as briefing our enforcers are concerned, malinaw po yung extension, no, na hindi dapat nating hinahanap po yan. If there has been any anomalies in this apprehension, we would sanction the proper enforcers on this kung yun po ang naging dahilan po ng apprehension.
More people may now benefit from cheaper medicines following the government's decision to exempt 21 medicines from the value-added tax. According to the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the additional VAT-exempt medicines are those for cancer, diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, mental illness, and tuberculosis. The BIR says this is based on instructions from the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Health to update the VAT-exempt products under the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Law and Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa welcomes this development, saying more people benefit from the lower price of medicine.
These are drugs that are needed by people who are really sick. So very important yung VAT exemption because that lowers the price of medicine. One of the things I want to do is to also be in the primary care, maging available yung medicines. And if your medicines are cheaper, mas marami akong mabibigyan with the budget that legislation gives me. So kung magmura ang medicines because of removal of the VAT, malaking tulong yun.
Here's the latest roundup of today's top stories. Senate to tackle economic Chacha starting next week. PNP says it has not monitored any plots against the administration of President Bongbong Marcos. And an MMDA official says there is no need for a traffic czar to oversee the traffic situation in Metro Manila. These are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.